In some ways, it does feel a bit repetitive to just continue coming back out here to Quattro and continue looking for a Great One red deer, but I'm really trying to not only kind of avoid repetition by hunting different lakes in each video, but I also wanted to kind of do that rather than hunt the entire map every single video, have kind of focal points in certain areas of the map, and maybe that can help you guys out with your grind in seeing kind of more of those lakes rather than cutting more stuff out from the video, and also seeing exactly where the zones are and kind of the strategy that we are going with. So last time we focused on like the 3 most populated lakes on the map, which in my opinion would be this one, and this one, which you see I was there recently with the hunting pressure. For this video, we're going to focus on the southeast portion of the map, pretty much every lake down in this area, and maybe down in here along the river a bit. Sometimes I get red deer there, sometimes I don't, and that'll kind of just depend on how the spawns look. And actually, not a bad start, a level 7, and a rare level 7 I would say that is not the max weight estimate. Most of the ones I see are that 210 to 240 kg range, and just because he just got into that zone, I want to take that shot before he starts to turn. A lot of times you see deer right as they get into their zone and like start to drink, they'll turn and face you or maybe turn away from you, and with that broadside shot, there's no point in risking that. So that is a thing I've noticed with this particular lake a lot. It's a big lake and it's kind of difficult to cover the entire thing, but they move around quite often. Sometimes they're down on this side, sometimes they're on this side, and we actually started over here and checked down on the west side of the lake, but there were none down on that area, and kind of figures they'd be over in here. So we may head down that side a little bit. Sometimes we'll see them further on, and that is kind of the thing with this grind. Picking and choosing where to go and look versus where to just kind of move on and go to the next lake. But I think that is another kind of positive in kind of selecting certain areas for these videos. We can be a little more thorough in our search of lakes like this, and that could in the end be a really big kind of a potential place where we could find something that we were missing. I think when it comes to the normal grind, when I'm just kind of grinding and not recording, I tend to be maybe a little more dismissive of those areas and just assume there's nothing around. But when it comes down to it, really covering your bases is important. But that was a gold level 7 at 183, and like I said, a pretty good start to our grind today. Well, it's clearly not a great one, but we're about to get basically run over by another decent sized red deer I never got to see. It was another 7 and a 184 actually. Thought he could have been a 6 or a 7 and an uneven goal with these racks. I don't usually tend to see that. But I mean, that is kind of the important thing. Obviously that one wasn't a great one, but it's in a spot where I couldn't really see. Across the water is too far, it would have been out of render. So it has to be a case where we run all the way down here, and like I said, being thorough and covering our bases. In that case, it didn't get us a great one, but it got us another stag and another respawn. And one of these times, it very well could be the animal we're after. I'm not sure whether to call it good news or not. We're over here by the river where I talked about, and there is a red deer stag down here, which hasn't happened in quite some time. But it can be, I don't know, a spot that I don't always get to check. There's only so much time, obviously, during red deer drink time to get to all the lakes. And this is one that oftentimes I feel like I can kind of skip, because most of the time there aren't red deer down here. And the few times I've checked it in the last couple of runs, it's not had anything, but to know that they are spawning here, at least on occasion, and to, you know, shoot a stag and know that there's going to be a respawn eventually, it's one that I gotta keep in the back of my mind and keep on checking, even though I almost wouldn't mind if it just kind of completely stopped spawning stags. But at least we got him, doubling him, and also we didn't have to run too far and we didn't have to track much. And I did actually check down here at what I've been calling the Tornado Lake. That's where we got our diamond in the last video, and there were no red deer stags down there at all, so we're now kind of moving on to these 5, and these 5 have been pretty good in the last bunch of runs, so I've got high hopes for what we might see here. And while the level might be lower, at least it is another stag spawn, and this is one of the 2 that's a little bit inconsistent with always having at least one stag. And again, we're being a little more thorough with our lakes today, so I definitely don't mind running around there and getting to pick that up. That is the one thing with having a tent kind of right near the water at all these spots. Sometimes, and I've explained this a bunch of times, but for anybody that doesn't know, if you spawn in at a tent or an outpost within 200 meters of animals, they'll be invisible until you get beyond that 200 meter mark. So anywhere potentially, you know, in a 200 meter circle basically around this tent, there wouldn't be any animals visible until we get beyond that distance from them. So by going over to this side and going to claim that red deer, any that are maybe real close to the tent on this side would become visible. And sometimes they spawn over there, sometimes they don't. And again, on a normal run, I just kind of, figure I'll get them eventually and sort of make it a little bit quicker. But today we can take our time and go through it. So then the question becomes, as we have a 121.2 scoring level 4 red deer, were there any over on that side to actually worry about? And it looks like in this case there were not. And actually this was the location of our piebald mythical stag that we shot not during this grind, actually probably almost a year ago. I believe it was at the beginning of 2021. So it's a spot that definitely can spawn big ones and definitely a pretty special one in that instance, but today it looks like just the one. I guess you just have to expect this kind of thing, because it is, at the end of the day, dealing with randomness, but the levels down here in this run have been kind of impressively low. Most of the time, when we're doing these lakes, we get like a lot of 7s and the occasional 8 or 9, and like these are most of what we see at some of those bigger lakes, and of course some larger ones sprinkled in as well, but this was one of the lakes where we actually had a pretty big one recently, and as has been the case in these videos, there's actually another small stag is over there. I wanted to kind of include the highlights of the last couple of days of grinding, basically since that last video, and there's definitely been some good ones in there, and as we can go figure, make that heart shop another one on the level 4. As we're running around here to claim them, we'll transition to some of the better red deer we've seen in the last couple of days. I want to say that's the highest estimate I've ever seen on a red deer, 258 to 304. Now we see this kind of often on fallow deer, and fallow deer have the same requirement for diamond of 251, so I'm not saying this one's going to be huge, but I am definitely crossing my fingers to see something better than that 264 we shot last time, and this is our first level 9 at the top right lake, so I think that's kind of a good thing. But we can drop that shot in there with the M1, and we can just sit right here because he's going to float all the way over. So there had been another stag to the left there. I guess we must have been just under 200 meters from that one, because I don't see it anymore. So maybe he'll come back as we gotta wait, or maybe we'll just be waiting here for a while till he gets here without anything to shoot. No sign of him coming back, so we can go ahead and claim our level 9, which I think that's the first time I've ever had a level 9, well I can say even diamond red deer because of the estimate, float all the way over, and he looks huge despite the fact that he's glitching there, but a 265.5, I think that is our biggest red deer ever. Heart shot there at 207 meters with the M1. I'll have to make sure to screenshot that. I thought we had killed a 267 or something like that in the past, but I think 263.7 was actually our best. So back-to-back PB red deer, 264 and then 265. Hopefully we can keep on building that score up and eventually see a great one show up. You know, it never ceases to amaze me the way that things work in this game. For the first, I don't know, it feels like 750, maybe 800 kills, because I haven't kept super close track. We struggled to get diamonds, but we had plenty of rares, but now in the last couple hundred, there are diamonds just everywhere, but we haven't seen a rare since the 2 albinos in that same herd, so I don't know what to make of any of that, but this guy actually did spook. I saw him run off and he came back to his zone, fortunately, so I'm kind of thinking if we can maybe just go ahead and take a shot from right here. We can try to go for a hard shot again. He is facing us. And it's a little over that 150 mark, so I have to stay a little bit high. But that'll drop him. Actually, much like the last one, there's a level 7 in the area as well that we can go ahead and try to get one more respawn on. And I mean, I definitely do think that's a good sign. This is going to be, well, I guess it helps if we don't hit the rock, but that would be not diamond number 4, I believe. And technically that rack can troll, but with an estimate of 246 to 292, I would expect him to be somewhere kind of in that 260 range again. It definitely looks similar to the 265 that we shot. We've been on a trend of getting bigger and bigger ones, so we'll see if that continues. 267.1, and probably the heaviest diamond red deer I've shot. I've never had a max weight that I can remember, and I want to say like 237 was the biggest in the past. I thought he looked good, and that estimate obviously was not as good as the last one, but to reach 267, that doesn't happen all that often, and like I had just said, I thought this is the score of our best, but it wasn't that big. He's actually, it must be the width. Does the width matter for them? You never know. Inner spread does. I don't see anything about outer spread, but that might still be the difference. All the true rack scores and the true scores are different, but I'm guessing that's what got him up to 267 because I couldn't fit that in the frame like normal. Pretty cool to get a score that high, and we know from the amount of great ones that have been killed by now, there's a very real chance if we ever get one it's going to be lower scoring than that diamond, or lower scoring than a lot of diamonds, but I guess it's the metal and the kind of unique rack that really makes the difference there. It may be kind of surprising, but I have genuinely never had one of these in Call of the Wild. It's a small rack, level 9 red deer, and they definitely can troll, and quite honestly the other rack can troll if you get like a very narrow rack or something like that as well. But the only time I've ever had diamonds with this rack, they've been like the mismatch rack, one of the big rack and one of the small rack. Now I did notice when he turned his head, he looked kinda narrow, so at that 235 to 281 estimate, he may well be a troll, but at least it is like a diamond rack that would have a good chance, maybe if not for having lower spread. And a lot of times these do tend to make it as well, so whatever, and take a look and see. But I guess this would be level 9 number 6, and depending on whether or not he makes diamond, it could be diamond number 5, or we could end up with our second troll. Now like I said, I've never actually had a diamond with this rack, so I'm not sure how wide they should be, but I've definitely seen a lot of them posted around, and I don't know. That looks narrow, so I'm not going to get my hopes too high. He is though, 251.4, he is a diamond just barely. That's going to be our smallest diamond red deer, which we nearly messed up. I guess I thought I was zeroed for 150 because I know I aimed high, thinking he was a little less than 300, so that could have been bad. But one of the rare opportunities then to get the full rack screenshotted in the harvest screen. 230.52 kg, that is a very light diamond red deer as well, so kind of cool to actually get that rack. Like I said, I don't have one in the trophy lodge, and that, oddly enough, despite the fact that it is the lowest scoring diamond red deer we've ever had, may actually make the main lodge, and we're gonna have to eventually move at least the 265 if we never get a bigger one to the main lodge as well, because I want to have like our biggest diamond red deer displayed, but for the moment everything's going in the red deer grind lodge. And I mean, again, going back to randomness, it was in the same location I believe as this level 4 that we shot. To never actually have a small rack diamond red deer, I think is just amazing for the fact that we have shot easily 10 plus diamond true rack red deer since their true racks came out. And I will say I actually saw one, I think in multiplayer the day that true rack axis deer came out, or the day that true rack axis deer were fixed. I was on Parquet and I remember seeing one, but I knew it was the small rack and I think I tracked it a while and lost it. That was the only opportunity I ever had, so it is nice to get one, and like I said at the time, that'll be a new rack to actually add to our main lodge there. But good to get actually 2 stacks from this lake. That doesn't happen incredibly often. And we can move on to these next 3, and this is the last one we'll go to today that's been inconsistent as far as always having a stag. So we'll kind of see what it has here. And par for the course, I guess actually kind of an improvement as a level 5, but another pretty small stag, kind of heading into its string zone, and that's the kind of animation that we often see when a red deer gets into its zone. Just that kind of turning and trying to decide what direction to face while drinking. Unfortunately, he turned back broadside, or we likely would have had to maneuver to get a shot around that tree. But that is another one down, and I have actually been quite pleased with the consistency of red deer throughout these lakes. Other than the Tornado Lake, there's been one at every spot that we've gone to. But what feels like silver red deer number like 10 or so on this hunt. Got him down, and we can continue on to, I guess, the last 2 lakes of this hunt. This one's sort of in the region that I was talking about, but it's actually not been that good in the last bunch of hunts, and I think I actually talked about it in a recent video having a bunch, but since then it's not been spawning them, so we'll just kind of continue with what we're doing here in these main lakes. And this spot, again, is kind of tough to set up for because you never know where the red deer are going to spawn. Sometimes they get them down there, sometimes they're up on the left side of the lake, and sometimes they're kind of just over here in the middle. So what I tend to do is spawn there and just, again, try to get back to where I'm 200 meters from any potential place that I've seen them. And usually there is one hiding around here somewhere. Almost predictably though, the one lake that I kind of talked up as usually having a red deer if you run around enough, seems to not have any red deer stags today. So the one thing I will say is that's got me intrigued as to what might be at our last lake. Thought that rock might have been the face of a red deer stag standing there, but no such luck. And again, maybe I shouldn't talk this one up, but this spot has had multiple stags for a lot of runs, and quite often a pretty decent one, and they're usually kind of right down in this area. Now, at the moment, I'm only seeing Mouflon, a couple of hinds. There's one decent stag, not max weight estimate, which often we see here. There is another one that is going to be though. So 2 nice 7s, always good to see. I mean, generally speaking, when it comes to grinding, I think any species, but especially red deer, just seeing the good sized antlers makes it a little easier to kind of come back time and time again and continue along with it. But if we can, because it's kind of tough shooting in through there, especially when the stag that we're trying to go for is pushing the other, I think we must have shot a little low on that attempted hard shot. And I actually don't know, but I don't think we hit the other 7 as well, so that will be a better follow-up. And that guy's just kind of running away, so got to hit a follow-up on him as well. Definitely lungs there. I think we actually got the other 7 good too. And see, there's a chance that's the one that we shot. It's not always though. Sometimes there are other stags like down on this side. So we may kind of back up just to make sure there's not one more here. And there absolutely was, just hiding back there in the trees. That's not the right red deer, but well, okay, I guess there's 2 ways this could work out. One of them would be we shoot this guy and another big one runs out of there. The other could be if somehow we just never got quite far enough away until right at that point, and there could be another closer to us. Maybe we still gotta back up. I would think that running all the way around the lake would get them to spawn in, but I don't know. I thought I could have seen that before, and I also would have thought I'd pick up that track, so we'll try to confirm everything here. Now the problem is, in shooting that red deer, we no longer have the track active for that 210 to 240 kg one that we picked up. So the only way that I can kind of figure is if we open the map, those tracks are still blue right now. Then we can click on this one, now they're white. And I guess what we gotta do is pick up blood here. Now we know we're on the trail of that guy, and that would appear to me to be a different red deer, which I don't have a clue where it actually is, but we actually did have a gold saving follow-up shot in that left lung. We gotta go back over there anyway and claim our 7. I'd love to know what that is and where it's hiding, so we'll do our best to solve that mystery yet. I mean, his drink zone is right there. Now, there are tracks kind of beyond it, so we may have spooked him out. I wanted to kind of confirm there's another drink zone over in there. It depends on where he was standing. We are still close enough to the tent that he wouldn't have spawned in there, but surely in running around the edge, he must have been visible somewhere and maybe just kind of hidden behind the trees. Now we're gonna go and find this level 7 quickly, which actually is laying right there, so we can get that accomplished. And I would say the most likely way to find him now is just to go and track him, so hopefully that won't take too long. And once again, fitting, just a level 7 for our max weight one. Now, that's going to be a tough shot to make. We can try it. I've had some success kind of like trying to get that side neck shot in there. Sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. And that's not actually going to bring him down, so I don't mind attempting it. It can save time, and this is meant to be the last red deer stag of this hunt. So we'll probably have to track him a little bit farther. And the way he's headed, there are some openings down in this area, maybe especially if he cuts down into a field. But somewhere he'll probably stop and give us a better follow-up shot. Well, certainly after a longer track than I intended, he's over there at 0 to 25% health, and not only that, kind of blocking his vitals there with his head, but give us a broadside shot and potentially the opportunity to kind of redeem ourselves on a gold. Now, it depends. We were zeroed for 75 meters when we took the neck shot, and that kind of does keep it usually lower down where we're not going to hit the skull and lose the gold that way. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if we get the gold or not, but it is always nice to kind of see that full score of these stags, and fortunately in this case, well underneath the skull, and I actually almost got the neck there with that, but double lung does the job on our 195 stag. And on that note, we're going to go back to the trophy lodge, of course our Red Deer specific trophy lodge, at least for now, and take a look at our 3 new stag additions. It is interesting as well. I mean, we got a 267 stag today, and I'm still looking at this 251 as potentially my favorite new addition, because it is a rack that we never had before in the main lodge. And like I said, I think in the last video, eventually at least some of these Red Deer will make their way into the main lodge. But I really like this idea of having like one lodge for everything from this grind. So obviously this was an older one, and then the 2 other ones from today, a 265.5 which had improved on this 264.7, and then just a massive 267.1. I don't know that we could see the difference between a 265 and 267. I'm curious if we just do like that pose. It may simply be the width. I think it's a little bit wider, but then again, I know that it's a higher score, so I might just be kind of projecting it onto that. But definitely really cool. We'll put these back eventually as we continue to potentially add to this lodge. But yeah, it was nice to get a small rack diamond red deer and a huge diamond red deer at 267, and all along the way, hopefully progress to getting that great one. But anyway, that is going to do it for this video. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.